Hi team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video. Myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is a US politics update, news update, giving you, hopefully, a good overview of what's been going on in the US, politically speaking, for the last week since I gave an in-depth report like this, and there's so much to go through. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it all. We're going to start with the polls. Trump is tanking in the polls at the moment, seriously, like multiple polls, New York Times Siena, YouGov, Fox News polls. It's not looking good. Here's a New York Times Siena job approval rating for between 18 and 29-year-olds, minus 43, 30 to 44-year-olds, minus 16, 45 to 64, minus 3, 65 plus 6, minus 6. White college voters, so white voters with a college education, minus 27. Black voters, minus 75. Hispanics, minus 23. And that's a demographic that's really gone down, because that actually did fairly well with the Hispanics, comparatively speaking. Only white voters with a non-college education is a demographic where Trump is above the water there. Okay, we can go and see so many different graphs and whatnot. Here's one from VoteHub that says, following several negative polls today, the decline in Trump's net approval in our polling average has accelerated, now at minus 8. Approval is 44.2, disapproval at 52.2. That's from that particular source. Change since last month, Trump going down 5.6. Change since January the 21st, so since the inauguration, minus 19.5. Real move in the wrong direction. AG here saying there are 4 national polls released today. All of them show the same thing. Trump's approval is crashing, and it's directly tied to how Americans feel he is handling the economy, and particularly tariffs. The economy went from its strongest issue to its weakest due to tariffs. And this is really important, because that's what, and I would argue it's an incorrect perception, but that's what the perception of Trump has been for some time, because he's a businessman. People have often thought he's really good for the economy. He's the best bet for steering the economy in the right direction. But actually, he's not a very good businessman. On his form, is it 6 bankruptcies he's had? And actually doesn't understand macroeconomics. He's not good for the economy, and you would have thought that would have been. Well, the thing is, what happened in Trump 1.0 is he took over a really good functioning economy that had 8 years of Biden putting things in place, and these slow burning policies that eventually lead to a really well functioning economy. Trump takes over, continues that, and then it starts going downhill. But part of that was, I think, disguised because COVID then hit. But actually, manufacturing was really falling before then. He blamed it all on COVID, but that was not the case. So then COVID hit and it tanked the economy. Biden took over, took it from a tanked economy, and then brought it back up much better than all other comparable economies around the world. So the American economy is functioning really well up until January the 20th. And inflation was something that Biden had worked hard to get under control, and it had come down markedly, in fact, much better than, I say, comparable Western economies or G7 economies. Then Trump has taken over and basically shafted the American economy, and this has led to a tanking in the polls, because people have really come to realize that he's not done a good job with the economy. Inflation, it has not been something that he's dealt with well. And jobs, I mean, he's not only sacking a bunch of people, but it's looking like people are going to lose their jobs as the effects of the tariffs hit. Now, in fact, we'll probably do this next before we get on to the other stuff. We're going to have a look at tariffs and the effect in after this, because what you need to know is there's a big lead time between putting tariffs on countries and then seeing the effect on things that are shipped and arriving in the US. And there are apparently huge issues with shipping and goods coming from China. And there's that lead time where they won't hit for a couple of weeks, but you'll start to see emptier shelves and issues with supply chains coming in maybe 2 to 3 weeks time, but not yet. So people have not felt the full force of the trade war with the world, but particularly with China, yet. And that will only have a more detrimental effect on the already tanking statistics for his popularity. Now, he is now underwater on the economy as well. He's even underwater on immigration. That's how bad things are for Trump at the moment. So you can see the downward trend here with the CBS YouGov poll. This is with regard to the economy, going from 51% approval to 42%. Handling of inflation, 46 to 38%. And we have here the disapproval of immigration, 53% disapproval. That's absolutely shocking for a subject that he should be. You would have thought that's, he got the vote largely on immigration and the economy. And those are two of the areas where he is underwater at the moment. Managing the federal government, even worse. Looking out for the interests of average Americans, even worse. The economy, even worse. US relations with other countries, just as bad as the economy there, 61% disapprove. Tariffs on imported goods, even worse. The recent turmoil in the stock market, even worse than that. So you can see all of these getting progressively worse until you're down to the turmoil in the stock market is 67% disapprove. Wow. I mean, absolutely incredible stats there. And then you have all sorts of different polls as well. This is NBC News. Then you got SSRS. And we go to the New York Post, that is a tabloid that should be very much in favor of Trump. The headline just from yesterday: President Trump battered by brutal polls that show his approval is sinking, including one revealing the lowest rankings since World War II. So that is in 80 years. Worst stats in 80 years. Absolutely incredible. Referring to all these different polls. So he's not doing well in the polls, and CNN and everyone reporting on this. The only thing where he's above water is on gender identity. Otherwise, even for immigration, 45% approval. Economy, 39% approval with this one. I can't remember which poll this is. Tariffs, 34%. And if you compare him to the other presidencies at the 100-day mark, he is the worst since the history of these polls. The only coming, beating himself in Trump 1.0. So Trump 1.0 was the worst after 100 days. Trump 2.0, even worse than Trump 1.0. So it's like people don't learn, isn't it? Quite incredible. So economic approval is down, underwater. He is in a lot of trouble. Okay, let's go on to the economy. We already know an awful lot about this topic. I've been talking about it in various videos for some weeks now. We'll just look at the S&P 500, one of the stock exchanges here. After first 100 days, Obama, that's the direction of travel. Trump 1.0 tailed off, started well, and then a bit of trouble, but much more positive than Trump 2.0. Biden, obviously taking over with regard to the pandemic. So you had some issues here at the beginning, and then and then once they got things sorted from the pandemic, it just skyrocketed after that, and has done well. In fact, it was reaching record levels, wasn't it? Record after record after record for the stock markets under Biden, and of course Trump was quite silent on that because he used to use the stock market as an indicator of political success, and of course, that would mean admitting that Biden was the most successful, and then he takes over and it does okay, and then it absolutely tanks. So the stock markets have been in all sorts of trouble. Biggest dip would have been the worst April since 1932, and so on and so forth. It was it has been pretty disastrous as far as the economy is concerned. So then you've got Scott Bessent, his Treasury Secretary, asked very clearly on Trump's strategy.
President Trump's strategy really has been to announce these tariffs, then dial some back, pause them, make exceptions. Explain why you see this as a good negotiating strategy.
Well, in game theory, it's called strategic uncertainty. So you're not going to tell the person on the other side of the negotiation where you're going to end up. And nobody's better at creating this leverage than President Trump. He's shown the high tariffs, and here's the stick. This is where the tariffs can go. And the carrot is come to us, take off your tariffs, take off your non-tariff trade barriers, stop manipulating your currency, stop subsidizing labor and capital, and then we can talk. But I tell you, Martha, that we've had several of these Asian countries that come in and said, oh, well, we'll stop doing this, this, and this. And I look at these lists and I think, how did we get here? How did we get here? Because this trading system has been so unfair. And as President Trump says, I don't blame the countries, I blame the previous administrations that let them get away with it.
So again, blaming the US, previous administrations, one of which was Trump, by the way, and he has a go at the USMCA, the replacement to NAFTA, that North American Free Trade Agreement, and that was sorted out by Trump himself and his administration. He says, "What loser sorted this out?" Well, your good self. But yeah, this is being sold as strategic uncertainty. That is what the interpretation of chaos is for Scott Bessent. There are so many videos coming out, or reports and whatnot of job losses, Mack Trucks and Volvo. This is a really interesting video. It's 11 minutes 42 long. You can find it on YouTube as well under More Perfect. The More Perfect Union, is it? More Perfect Union, yeah. This is a look at the Mack facility in, is it Pennsylvania, and the fact they're laying people off, but what's been going on, and how they were hoping the USMCA could improve matters, but actually it didn't end up doing so, and what can be done about it. This is a slightly, these are long-term issues of undercutting labor, decent union jobs up in the north of the US, where you have better, workers' rights and protections, and then you're shipping off those jobs to cheaper labor areas like Mexico, and what you really want is to raise the working conditions of people in Mexico and raise the wages there, bring Mexico up, rather than push American workers down to have cheaper wages to match the Mexican. So, these are all complex issues, but the end result at the moment is that jobs are going from, what is it we've heard, Mazda, Subaru, Mack, there's another car manufacturer, and they're all like paring back manufacturing of certain lines, particularly ones that are going to Canada. So there's a couple of Japanese manufacturers who have factories in the US, and instead of providing Canada with the vehicles from the US, they're now going to make them in Japan and ship them straight to Canada, because they have a better trade deal between Japan and Canada than between the US and Canada, once they've whacked tariffs on. So that hits the workers in the US, and so on and so forth. There's an awful lot of this happening. Here's a Subaru one. Trump, massive blow to Trump as Japanese car giant Subaru moves production out of the US. Be warned with some of these articles, because it's not like they're stopping production completely. It's just they're stopping certain production of certain lines, ones that they would be selling to Canada, for example. They're building elsewhere, not like stopping everything, but these are having detrimental effects on the manufacturing industries within the United States. And then you've got this completely unsurprising situation whereby there's been this huge trade war between the US and China, with tariffs being whacked up to ridiculous levels by the United States, and then reciprocal tariffs coming back, and then other things being brought into the mix. The idea supposedly is that you're trying to onshore manufacturing, and he's got Tim Cook from Apple pressuring, and then you have an exemption. And it looks all pally between the Trump administration, all these tech billionaires and oligarchs. And in the end, one would expect there to be an onshoring of manufacturing of these people who are cozied up with Trump. But no, It turns out that Apple plans to shift the assembly of all US sold iPhones from China, where? Assembly to the US? No, to India as soon as next year. So it's just like, yeah, it's still cheaper to do it somewhere else. I mean, we are not going to get the cheap labor in the US, so we're going to move it from China to India. Okay, so the problem is still exactly the same. So this just then adds a headache to the American administration, to the Trump administration, who says, okay, now we've got to whack up crazy tariffs on India, but actually they're just saying they're doing pretty well with the trade deal with India. According to people familiar with the matter, as President Trump's trade war forces the tech giant to pivot away from China. So yeah, this might hurt China, but it's still not benefiting the United States. And indeed, one assumes they're in China because it's cheaper than being in India. So now they're stepping up to go to India. That will raise costs, and the transition will cost money. So that will still have an inflationary effect on Apple products. So Apple products will be more expensive in the US, and they're not onshoring the jobs. So in other words, it's just inflationary. Now, here we've got, what's his name? I forget this chap's name. One of the representatives for the Trump administration Treasury Department saying that they're very close to a trade deal with South Korea, coming on the news to say this. But as Christopher Webb says, this is a joke. We've already got one. Chorus, a free trade agreement signed in 2007 and updated in 2018, which is the Trump administration, right? Nearly all tariffs are already gone. P.S. Scott Bessent sounds like a terrible negotiator. We'll see if they actually follow through. This is a clown show. That's not Scott Bessent there, though. But yeah, so they're not being particularly honest with the successes they claim they're having with the trade negotiations. They're supposed to be getting 90 trade negotiations sealed within 90 days, and I don't know what it is now, 75 days or something like that, and there doesn't appear to be any trade deals done. Now, for the third time in days, China stated that they have not conducted negotiations or consultations on tariffs. This morning, the foreign ministry said that Beijing and Washington, and this is coming from today, by the way, have had no such talks, directly contradicting Trump. Remember, Trump said in the Time magazine article, in fact, we can go and find this, meanwhile, China has been moving exports to new markets. Well, the Time magazine transcript has him talking about trade deals with China, and he's clearly not being particularly honest with what's going on there with regard to China. And I'm going to read through this because it's absolutely fascinating. This, we're going to come to this pretty much next anyway, I think. So Time magazine says, your trade advisor Peter Navarro says 90 deals in 90 days is possible. We're now 13 days to the point, this is the time of writing, from when you lifted the discounted reciprocal tariffs. There's 0 deals so far. Why is that? Trump says, no, there's many deals. Okay, when are they going to be announced? Trump says, you have to understand, I'm dealing with all the companies, very friendly countries. We're meeting with China. We're doing fine with everybody, but ultimately I've made all the deals. So he's saying he's meeting with China, China denying it, and there's lots more later about China, which is a flat contradiction to what China's saying. So then Time asks, not one has been announced yet. When are you going to announce them? And Trump says, I've made 200 deals. So Trump is saying he's made 200 deals, 200 trade deals. So Time goes, you've made 200 deals? Trump says, 100%. Time says, can you share with whom? Trump says, because a deal is a deal that I choose. View it differently. We are a department store and we set the price. I meet with the companies and then I set a fair price, and I consider to what I consider to be a fair price, and they can pay it or they don't have to pay it. They don't have to do business with the United States, but I set blah, 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 blah. And he goes on and on and on with this massive rambling answer, to which Time said, so Time says, can you share with whom you made these deals? He does this massive rambling answer that doesn't answer that whatsoever. And Time just beautifully say, I'm just curious, why don't you announce these deals that you've solidified? And he says, I would say over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and we're finished, by the way. Which doesn't really make any sense. Time then says, you're finished? And he says, we'll be finished. So, okay, you'll be finished in 3 to 4 weeks. And Trump says, I'll be finished. Now, some countries may come back and ask for an adjustment, and I'll consider that, but I'll basically be with great knowledge setting ready. I can't make much sense of this. We're a department store, a giant department store, the biggest department store in history. Everybody wants to come and take it from us. They're going to come in and they're going to pay a price for taking our treasure, for taking our jobs. Of course, he doesn't understand trade. Like, department store is, yeah, if we have a price, if we sell stuff to you at that price and you give us that money and we give you that good, then we're both happy with that. Like, that is mutually valuable to both of us. So what's been happening so far is exactly that. There's no unfairness, there's no cheating. It's just that the US has more money than every other country on earth, and so they can go around buying more stuff. That there is a trade deficit is neither good nor bad. In fact, a trade deficit for a country usually implies that they're a well-off country, because they're able to buy more from, say, Vietnam than Vietnam can buy from the US, obviously. But Trump sees that as a negative. And he's kind of explaining that here. They're going to come in and they're going to pay a price for taking our treasure, for taking our jobs, for doing all of these things. But what I'm doing with the tariffs is people are coming in and they're building at levels you've never seen before. We have 7 trillion of new plants, factories and other things, investment coming from the United States. And if you look back at past presidents, nobody was anywhere near that. And this is in 3 months. And of course, he's been on record as claiming successes for infrastructure investment that was done under Biden. Right, so but these are long-term things, right? Here's a $500 million plant investment. He goes, look what we've done, and it's like, that was Biden that did that. So, you know, will you call President Xi if he doesn't call you? No, you won't. Nope. Has he called you yet? Yep. When did he call you? He's called, and I don't think that's a sign of weakness on his behalf. But you would think it's a sign of weakness if you called him. I don't. I just look. Well, what did he say? If people want to, well, we all want to make deals, but I'm a giant store. It's giant, beautiful store. And everybody wants to go shopping there. And on behalf of the American people, I own the store and I set prices. And I'll say, if you want to shop here, this is what you have to pay. So he's talking about price control now, right? Which is a big no-no. I mean, it's totally un-free market. So all of those free market, particularly Republicans, who've just spent the last 30, 40 years going, free market, free market, free market, you know, liberalism, classic liberalism. We want no government intervention. This is all about Ayn Rand's libertarianism and blah, blah, blah. And the Austrian School of Economics and the Chicago boys and so on and so forth. They're like, yeah, this is what we stand for. Trump comes along, blows it out the water and talks about price control. And like, we're a department store and I'm going to charge me, Donald Trump, I'm going to charge every country what I dictate, not what the market dictates, not the free market. This is the dictator market, right? And Republicans then have to just completely swivel. They do a pivot and go, oh yeah, that's brilliant. But weren't you just saying the complete opposite was brilliant previously for the last 30 years? Yeah. But now our guy's in charge. Yeah, all of that was wrong and it sucks. And this is the new normal. This is the new cool. I like dictators. Did I not say I like dictators before? I mean, come on, they're pretty cool. Like they own the department store, don't they? They can kind of set what prices they want, and that's really cool, isn't it? Like, dictators are cool, aren't they? No, not really. No. So, all of this kind of talk about, you know, talking with China and China coming out and saying, no, it's a load of rubbish. It's just not happening. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, so China's denied that. Really not sure how anyone is supposed to negotiate a trade agreement with someone who has no coherent demands and an increasingly fragile grip on reality. And that's what Eric Levitz says in reply to what I've just read out to you about, you know, the 200 deals and his understanding of just being a big giant department store. To which Martha Stewart on ABC says to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary.
Let's talk about the time interview with President Trump. He said that he has made 200 deals on tariffs. 200 deals? Who has he made deals with? Is there actually any deal at this point?
I believe that he is referring to sub-deals within the negotiations we're doing. And
so now Trump's referring to not deals, not trade deals, but sub-deals. Sub-deals within, so which of course Trump is is going to be sorting out, right? He's got the time between playing golf and slagging off Zelensky and giving fellatio to Putin. He's got time to sort out these sub deals. So he goes around, goes into every one of these meetings, says, right, guys, I'm going to do these sub deals. And we know he's the one that's doing it because he's told you that he's doing that. Like, I'm the one that's done these deals. I've made 200 deals. You've made 200 deals, 100%. You've made 200 deals, 100%. So he's made 200 deals.
Martha, if there are 180...
But those aren't actual deals.
Martha, if there are 180 countries, there are 18 important trading partners. Let's put China to the side because that's a special negotiation. There's 17 important trading partners, and we have a process in place over the next 90 days to negotiate with them. Some of those are moving along very well, especially with the Asian countries.
They're moving along very well, but that's not doing deals. What is a sub deal? Like, so Trump is essentially talking Rolex. And here...
Yeah, please. A question on China. Can you clarify with whom the U.S. is speaking with China? They're saying is...
So this is 4 days ago, where he had said we're doing talks with China. China then denied it 4 days ago. They then denied it again. They now denied it again today. The person is, can you clarify who you're talking to?
News that trade talks are happening.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they
They had a meeting this morning. Who's they? Doesn't matter who they are.
is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China. And so I think you have, Jeff, as usual, I think you have your reporting wrong. Thank you very much.
So Jeff has his reporting wrong. No, China have literally denied this. A Minister of Foreign Affairs came out and denied it flatly. Now, China could be lying, or Trump could be lying, or Trump might not know, but then he's lying. If he doesn't know, then he's lying. Someone could have lied to him. Somebody's lying. Somebody here is lying. Or making up stuff, commonly known as lying. Right. Talking about China, it's interesting. This is coming from The Economist, an article in The Economist. Shashant Joshi says, in the spring of 2017, Trump called Xi so often to ask for help with North Korea that Chinese envoys eventually delivered a discreet message to American contacts. Mr. Xi is, quote, not our North Korean desk officer. They pleaded, let underlings handle this. So, in other words, back in 2017, apparently they had to say to Trump, stop phoning Xi. Like, get people underneath this to sort out North Korea. It's not our problem, not my problem. Please stop calling me. I'm going to block you soon. Ed Krasenstein here says, no, America, Trump can't... Well, okay, what's he replying to? This is really important to get your head around. So Donald Trump says, when tariffs cut in, many people's income taxes will be substantially reduced, maybe even completely eliminated. Focus will be on people making less than 200,000 a year. Also, massive numbers of jobs are already being created, with new plants and factories currently being built or planned. It will be a bonanza for America. The External Revenue Service is happening. So he's saying we're going to replace income tax with external revenue tariffs, essentially, that he will term as the External Revenue Service. And this is kind of taking the US in the opposite direction to where it's come, which is where they used to generate most taxes from tariffs, and then they went to income tax back whenever it was, 100 years ago or whatever, and now they're going in the other direction. But Ed Krasenstein points out that no, America, Trump can't replace income taxes on those making under 200,000 with tariffs. Trump is hoping you are too dumb to understand how taxes work. Entirely removing income taxes for those making under 200,000 will cost the government approximately $1 trillion in revenue each year. A 10% tariff across the board on all US imports would generate only around $310 billion a year. Even a 25% tariff across the board would only bring in approximately $780 billion a year. Even a 35% tariff on all US imports would work out work, because as tariffs go up, imports decline, resulting in less tariff revenue. A 35% tariff would likely shrink the number of imports by 25 to 40%, meaning it's virtually impossible to replace income taxes with tariffs. Remember, tariffs are still a tax on Americans. Trump won't tell you this because he hopes you are stupid. The amount of additional revenue for the US government might go up slightly due to the tariffs, but cost of goods for American consumers will go up too, all while our trade partners likely put tariffs on American-made products as well. Okay, so but also remember, if you're going to stop taxing people's income, what is the point of tariffs, right? So the point of tariffs isn't to generate income, right? Because it's just a tax on your consumer, and it's an additional tax to their existing taxes. So therefore, it's incredibly damaging to the disposable income to the American consumer. So the idea is that that's a short-term hit. The long-term gain is your onshoring manufacturing. But once you've onshored all of that manufacturing, your tariffs will go down. You can't have high tariff income and onshoring manufacturing, because the onshoring of the manufacturing is to replace the tariffs are a punishment so that people wean themselves off that, don't pay the tariffs, and buy American goods. But when you're buying American goods, if you're getting rid of income tax and replacing it with tariffs, you then have no tariffs coming in because you've onshored the employment and the manufacturing, and now there's no income tax. So where are your taxes to pay for all the stuff that you were paying for previously that was coming from income taxes? It's just so nonsensical, all of this. It's absolutely incredible. And there you go. That's where I'm going to leave this actually at the moment. I'm just going to do an economics video and the polling that we skipped over at the beginning, and I'll move on to what's going on with domestic politics inside the US in the next video. So let me know what you think about the trade war, what you think about Trump's polling situation at the moment, and whether that will have whether there'll be a lasting effect, how you see the trends going, what you think the effect of such a low polling will be, what does that transfer into? Will we see dissent on the streets? Will we see Republicans come out and cast a more critical eye on what is going on, or will there be a strict, almost dictatorial grasp on the Republican congressmen and women so that they don't show public dissent? Be interested in what you think. Take care, guys. I'll speak to you soon.